Hi everybody, this is Brandon with StepRock Media. As the video title says, we're going to learn Blender sculpting, and this is for beginners. So if you're not too familiar with Blender or you're just new to sculpting, this will be a perfectly fine tutorial for you. I hope you will download Blender and follow along. Let's start a new file. New file. Cool. Alright, we have our default cube. I don't need to worry about the material, but what I do need to do is I'm going to go ahead and tap on Tab, and we're going to go ahead and select all these vertices here. I can just hit A, and we're going to right click and hit subdivide. And in the flyout here, I'm going to give it a couple of iterations. The real trick here is to make sure that you keep a center line right down the middle. You don't want it to be flat like that. You want to have a center line no matter how many times you do it. If you're totally new to Blender and you don't know what the heck I've done so far, all we're doing is scrolling in and out with our mouse wheel, and I'm going to click down on the mouse wheel to orbit around, and we hit Tab to change from edit mode to object mode right up here as a quick way to do it, and I hit A to select all. So that is about it. So we'll just hit A to select all, right click, hit subdivide in that right click menu, and before we leave this menu, go ahead and get your subdivision. I'd like to give it some smoothness too. I just like to start out roughly with what I'm going to be building. My model has this material on it already. I think I'll get rid of that and add a new material. That's fine. That's fine. Just a white material will work in this case. Good. Let's go do some sculpting. There's a sculpting tab right up here. And all this is, it's a predefined workspace that Blender came up with for you. You can create your own predefined workspaces if you want to. This is just a nice one for the purpose of sculpting. We'll see all the tools on the left, and we'll see that the tools panel over here, active tool panel, is opened up to give you some more options. A lot of this is actually repeated along the top here, so I tend to bounce back and forth between the tool. What I do is I change strength right here, or I'll change radius here, and that is about all you need to know right now, and I'm going to give you a tour of what's going on. We're going to zoom in and out, and you'll notice the brush is staying the same size on screen, right? But what that's doing is that when you get closer, it's a smaller and smaller brush. That's the default behavior. You can change that, but I kind of like it to act like that, so we'll just leave that behavior alone for the purposes of this tutorial. And the other thing I'd like you to notice is that as we cross that center line that we talked about, you see that dot over there that's floating around? That is mirroring. We have the X mirroring right up here, which is something that we actually like to have on. It's a lot of fun. You could do X, Y, and Z mirroring, or you can turn it off, but I'm going to do a symmetrical kind of a model, so I like to have that on. Cool? Touring down the side here, the blue tools, they tend to be about building, removing. We can add and subtract. I like to use clay strips a lot, so that'll be one tool that I'm going to go to a lot. And you could tell right here that has a plus or a minus behavior, so we can either build up material or take away material. So that's pretty cool. When we get into the red, these tend to be about scrapers and smoothers. I mostly use the smooth tool. And by the way, I find its strength to be a little bit too strong at the beginning, so I'm just going to slide that down. And you'll see the same thing is happening over here on the right. So you can use either panel that you like. Top panel, side panel. Heck, you can even right click and do some changes there. So really, really flexible. It just rolls with you however you want to work with this tool. When we get into the yellow tools, they're squishing and stretching and things like that. And when you get beyond the yellows, they tend to be a bit more into dynamics and masking and cloth simulations and stuff like that. So not quite anything that you need to get to on your first trip out here, so we're not going to worry about that for right now. We are going to start off with the elastic deform tool, and you can see a little preview about what it's doing is squishing it. So we're going to zoom out, and I'm going to show you your first shortcut. Instead of changing the radius up here, which you can do, you have to leave your work every time you do that, or you'd have to right click and do it that way. One quick way to do that without clicking away, quick click. A quick way to do it is to hit the F key. F as in Frank, as in fantastic. And you can see that it will allow you to resize it, and it shows you what the size of the brush was versus what it will be when you click. Pretty neat, huh? I like it. So I'm going to increase this, and I'm just going to squish, 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 squish. And follow along with me. Go ahead and open up Blender yourself, and let's have some fun. Let's play with this. We'll just squish this guy into roughly kind of a head-like shape that we want. And it can be realistic or cartoony or whatever. Don't worry about getting everything right if this is your first time doing sculpting in Blender. Just learn the tools, Get familiar with them, and the more you do this, the easier this will become, and it starts to feel really fluid. Very nice. That is good enough for this tool. Let's go ahead and start adding material with that clay strips tool is the one I really like to use. There's a lot of different tools. I like to use these two, the blobbing and inflating tools. Those are fun. I use a bunch of them, but clay strips is one that's pretty popular. Now, if you've ever tried the sculpting, you've probably gotten in here and do this, and you're like, what's going on? Nothing's happening. I can see that the facets are still the same. Nothing has happened. You're exactly right. Nothing has happened. Why? Well, we need to activate something called Dyntopo, dynamic topology. And it's up here, and it's also down here. I like to use the one on the side down here and get these options. What this is going to do is it's going to allow us to start actually adding and subtracting geometry as we go along. So that's a real key about being able to be successful with sculpting in Blender. We'll turn it on. It'll probably warn us. It always warns you about something. I don't know. I don't worry about it too much. And now we're going to start adding material. So with this clay strips, the strength where it's at, and on add, you can see what happens. Now we're sculpting, right? Now, personally, I find that to be a little bit too crunchy for my good taste. So what I usually do is that I'll take the Dyntopo detail size and I'll kick it up. Right now, that's the relative size of the facets, and they're a 12 pixel size. I like bigger ones. I like to work from really big, broad shapes and then get down into more details as I go along. So there we go. You see how big that is right there? Really big facets. Really big facets. And if you think about this as clay, it makes a lot more sense. All you're doing right now is you're just adding material. You can hit subtract and you can carve away material, but I'm going to show you your second shortcut, which is to hold down Control on your keyboard, and that will carve it away instead of having to click away. So what we're going to do is to be able to work a little bit faster. Now that's pretty aggressive, so I think I'll take that strength down a bit. There we go. That's a little bit more manageable. And if you're really new to this, definitely don't be afraid to take those tools and say, whoa, whoa, slow down, don't run away from me. Don't run away. We'll just start out really big, really loose, and with tools that are not too aggressive. And they'll eventually kind of get to a point where they start to slow down, and you'll need to kind of add more material by increasing your detail size is usually a way to do that, I find. We can keep doing this bit by bit if we want to, and you can see I'm starting to kind of get a little bit of a chin. And I'm going to try to channel my inner Bob Ross while I'm doing this and remind you that there are no mistakes. There's just happy accidents. And this is clay. This is no longer 3D polygons. This is clay. And what we do with clay is we add more material, and if we don't like it, we scrape it off and we start again. I'll hold down Control, carve in. I'll stop holding that, and we'll build out, build out, build out. See what that does? Building out. Take the chin, build that out. I'll grab the elastic tool again and just grab it and stretch it. Once you start to get your material on here to work with, you can really start to just have some fun and just squish and stretch and move things around. And don't worry if it looks bad. Don't worry if it looks bad. Give yourself a break. If it looks bad, it means you're not finished. So keep working on it. And what I'll do is I'll keep working at this detail level until I'm finished with the whole model, and I don't sit in one place for too long. We float around, do all the different parts, get roughly some stuff to work with. We'll have a nose somewhere in here, but I think that the brush size is getting too small for our detail size, so it's not going to do much because we have a really big facet kind of a setup in here. So we're going to have big facets, and a small brush won't do much about moving those great big facets around. But we'll go ahead and add something of a ballpark of a nose and of brows. But I think we're almost done for this pass. So if you feel comfortable, we can go ahead to the next step. Otherwise, pause the video and you keep on sculpting on your model until you're happy with it, okay? But I'm going to go ahead and move along. I'm going to take my detail size down, and we're going to learn another shortcut, and we'll be just about done with shortcuts. So far what we're doing is we are scrolling in and out with a mouse wheel to go zooming in and out. We're pressing and holding on the mouse wheel to roll around. We press F, as in Frank, to resize the brush. We hit Control to switch back and forth between plus and minus. Frankly, I wish that were highlighting when you do that. It would make it a little bit more obvious, but that's what's happening. We're just switching back and forth between carving in and building up. Resize, build up, build up, build up, build up. And the next thing that we're going to do is to learn one more shortcut, and that is a shortcut over to smoothing. We could click on smoothing, and it'll just kind of like smooth off all the work we've done here, and actually it's a little too aggressive. You see how it went a little bit crazy? I'll remove that strength. But a really quick way to get into this smoothing without letting go of our tool, while we're on the tool that we're using, we'll just hold down Shift. Hold down Shift, and you'll notice it's doing the same thing. So I can keep using my clay strips tool to build up, build up, build up, build up here. Hold down Control to carve in, carve in, carve in, build up by letting go of Control, build up, and then we're going to hold down Shift and smooth, 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 smooth. And once you start doing this, you kind of get into this nice rhythm. Building up, building up, building up, carving in, carving in, carving in, carving in, carving in, and I'll hold down Shift and we'll smooth it down. Build up, build up, build up, build up, build up. Let's make that a little bit more aggressive. I think we can get aggressive now. We're feeling confident. Feeling confident. Now we're going to mess everything up, right? You don't ever mess up. You can always just scrape it off and start again, or you can save periodically and go back to one of your saves. That would also work. We're going to build up a little bit of a chin here. We're going to have some space for a mouth, but I think that might be just about good enough right now. That's a little too aggressive for that space. Let's reduce that strength. We could also right-click and get that strength area there. Or we could go to this side panel or up there, anywhere that you like. Don't be afraid of this tool set. It's really, really flexible, and it's designed to try to help you. Hey, he's starting to look like something, isn't he? He looks like a bean. Looks like a bean. And I like to work the entire model and get it to the same detail level with each pass, even if it means I'm just clicking on it with clay strips. What that's doing is it's telling the software to go ahead and subdivide down so that when I do decide to go and do that smoothing by holding down Shift, that's all I'm doing, holding down Shift and smoothing it down, it's all going to be at the same level of detail. Right back here, you see these facets are really big and bulky. I'm just clicking on it. I'm just clicking on it. I'm not even changing enough here, but when I hold down Shift, it subdivided it down and got that material anyway. We can come down here underneath, and I think I'll get assertive. I'm going to get assertive. Get assertive. And we're going to add a neck kind of impression here. I like to have a neck on the heads that I'm doing just so I have some sense about their place in the universe. Not too bad. Not too bad. The next thing I like to do on my models, and we're getting into more of a concept about modeling, and you're going to have your own approach here. But for me, what I like to do, I like to define this jawline. All right, I'll grab a smaller brush and we'll just define a jawline, kind of like a beard. Looks like a beard. And it'll go right up into the ear. See? All we're doing is adding some material for us to work with. We're adding clay. It doesn't have to be perfect. Remember, if it's not looking great, it's probably because you're not finished. It's okay if it doesn't look good. You're not finished. I think that's a good life lesson, don't you? Maybe things in your life are not looking great. They don't look perfect. But then again, you're not finished. All right. Let's grab this elastic deform. I'm going to squish in his nose. Heck, I'm going to pull out his nose a bit. And I'm going to show you another tool because it's fun. We're going to use the inflate tool, maybe the blob tool. The inflate tool, as you see in this little tool tip over there, it blows it up like it's puffing air into it. See? Poof, poof, poof. Poof, poof, poof. This guy's going to be more cartoony, I think. More cartoony than my other one. And the blob tool is similar, but you can kind of just run along with it like this, you see. That's another tool I'll sometimes use instead of that process I was just doing with the clay strips and then smoothing it off. Sometimes I'll just grab that blob tool and just run along. But I like to smooth this down. And I think I'll hold down Control on that tool. And it's a little aggressive. Let's go back to clay strips. Clay strips. We're going to carve out his chin. Holding down Control, carving that out. Don't worry if you mess up. We can always put it right back. Look, I just put it right back. Hold down Control to carve in. Letting go to build up. I'll hold down Shift to smooth it all in. And that just defined a differentiation area between his head and his neck. Look at that. See how easy that was? You can do this. You can do this. I hope that your model looks better than mine. I have no doubt that it will. I'm going to carve in by holding down Control. That's a little aggressive. I'm going to smooth just this side of it. Okay? I'm going to leave a little bit more of a sharp line on the other side of that. That's a little trick I use sometimes. Build up, build up, build up, build up. This is where the ear's going to go. And you notice I'm moving around. I'm not hanging out in one place. Don't hang out in one place. Keep moving around. I'm going to hold down Shift on the front of the ear. Smooth it out. But we'll leave the back of it a little bit more crisp. In fact, I could get close in here, hold down Control, carve it off. We could build up some material here. These facets appear a little bit smaller because of that relative behavior of the tool. So same thing as that brush looking small when we zoom in, even though we didn't change the size of it. We're seeing a little bit more detailed facets as we go into. It's fun. And when I get closer into the ears, I'll do the same thing, just doing that carving out, building up, carving out, building up. You can see what's going to start to happen there, but we don't have enough detail for this right now. So don't worry if that's not working correctly. It's got a ballpark idea about what's going to happen, you see? And as we increase our detail, we'll be able to get into these more fine areas. But work the entire model. Work the entire model. Get the entire model where you want it to be on that step. Okay? It doesn't have to be finished. Doesn't have to be perfect. Just get it to where you want it on that step, and then move on to another step. Okay? I'm going to build up this chin because it's fun. Look at that chin. Look at that chin. This guy has got a chin and a half. Big chin like that. Heavy brows. Looks like a real old guy, doesn't he? He's kind of, I'm letting him just invent himself as I go along. Got a flat forehead too, which is fine, but we want to make sure that we have some good geometry. If you understand anything about the way a skull is supposed to look, this is going to help you a lot at this stage. So if you study or have reference, really good. So that forehead was a little bit too flat. We want him to roll off a little bit, and the way that it flows from any angle. Starts to turn into something, doesn't it? Okay, that is actually the whole process that I go through here. I'm going to drop down my detail from 20 down to 10, not 1, down to 10, and I'm going to keep on going with this. But that is actually the whole process. If you want to hang out and keep on just modeling along with me, we'll chat and just hang out for a few minutes here. I'm not going to finish up this whole project right here, but we will just keep working on it for fun. Sometimes I'll go and add a sphere. I will leave the sculpting mode and go back to layout and just add spheres here for the eyes. And sometimes I'll just go ahead and build them into the model. Now, for those of you who want to do this sort of thing because you want to rig them or animate them or anything like that, you're going to have a whole other process that is retopologization. You can look that up if you can spell it. Retopologization, which basically means out in the main modeling area of Blender, you're going to go and draw faces over top of this really carefully, bit by bit, to match the style and the flow of this. And there's some tools to help you with that. The skin modifier will help you with that, because for this kind of thing, these facets are all over the place. These are no good for animating. This is more for a final model if you just wanted to do an art project, or if you were using this to move really quickly in a fluid clay kind of a way to get your model designed but not finalized. This is a first step, and it's a really useful step for building out those models, but you do have another step ahead of you called retopologization to help you actually finish the model out and make it useful, and to get these lines defined into a good flow. I'm going to go ahead and click, 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 just to subdivide it. That way when I hold down Shift, we get nice, nice, nice lines. Another tool that I enjoy, we'll show you after I subdivide this down. We're going to subdivide this down. Boop, 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 boop. Nice, nice. Another tool I enjoy, crease, 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 crease. Crease is fun. Crease is going to take the vertices that are within this range of this tool and pinch them all together. See them all squeezing together? And it's fun when you cross the center line, because you cross over and you have two tools going at once. So it's like you're working with your left and your right hand. You are an amazing sculptor working ambidextrously. So there you go. I just really defined a good crease, a good fold there. And that will just give me kind of an idea about where I want this character to go. Too aggressive. Too aggressive. Drop that down. Drop that down. Not bad. Not bad. These clay strips can look a little bit square. So again, hold down Shift, which activates that smooth tool. Smooth it down. That's all right. Build up some material. Look at that. What a mess. What a mess. That's no good. That's terrible, right? But if we hold down Shift, there we go. Now he's got some little bit of a double chin going down there. A little bit of a soft chin under there. We could go and hold down Control and scrape off his chin, and then hold down Shift to smooth it out, and we just sharpen up the whole thing. See? When we get into doing the lips, we get into a lot of detailed area too. And I usually kind of build up. I don't like the way I do lips yet. But I'll usually build up and give myself some material. And I'll do that trick I was showing you 2 seconds ago about. We'll build the whole thing up like this. And we'll smooth off, but we'll leave the other edge of it real sharp the way it was. Right? And after we start doing that, we can switch to some other tools like that crease tool to really sharpen it up. You know what we haven't messed with here? We haven't gotten your nose yet, have we, my friend? Well, let's go ahead and hold down Shift and subdivide that nose of yours. Not too bad. Not too bad. Does he need nostrils? He's a cartoon character. I don't know if he needs nostrils, but we'll give them to him. And one good tool here is going to be that inflate tool for this kind of thing, these lobes. See that? So I'll build up that. Whoops, not there. Maybe if I have a nice big inflate tool, we can puff up his, give him a nice round nose. Then we can grab that crease tool again, get in close, and tighten up around that nostril area. See that? And it helps if we have good geometry in there. Right now we still have some of that more big, bold fractal stuff that we had when we first started. So I'm going to just tap, tap, tap with this clay strips, and I'll hold down Shift, and look at that. Look at all that subdivision. We're at that level 10 subdivision that we were doing before. I am going to, I think, grab my smushy elastic deform tool. We'll move this up. I'm going to show you one more trick, and then I think we're going to call it a day for the for this particular tutorial. I'm sorry. We can't leave you. We can't leave you with your poor mouth shut like that, can we? That was cruel. I'm going to start to give you some lips. These are terrible. These are terrible. That's all right. They're terrible because they're not finished yet. They're not finished yet. Okay, the one trick that I was going to show you is that when you've got this material in here, you can start to take this elastic deform and just really, really squish the heck out of your model. You know, take the whole thing and say, you know what, this whole ear ought to be shifted forward. Well, that's fine. We can do that. And then when you start to look at it, you're like, well, maybe his head's a little pointed. That's fine. Squish it down. No problemo. Well, maybe his brow wants to be a little bit wider. We can grab a smaller version of that and stretch that out. We can go to this view, pull it forward. The whole thing, he looks like he's leaning forward a bit too much. That's fine. Squish him back into place. And that's about it for today. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. I hope you'll keep on sculpting along and make your character a lot of fun. If this was helpful, I would really appreciate a comment so that I know I'm on the right track and I'm being helpful to you. I like that even more than a like on the video. A comment on the video lets me know that I'm not sitting here talking to myself. So if you want some more content like this, or you just want to hang out and do a Let's Sculpt together, we'll do that and we'll keep on hanging out. But I appreciate you, and I hope you have a really nice day. Bye, everybody.